This is In-Ear Insights, the Trust Insights podcast. This episode of In-Ear Insights is brought to you by Spin Sucks. If you work in communications or public relations, you've heard of the PESO media model, paid, earned, shared, owned, pioneered by Ginny Dietrich and the team at Spin Sucks. Take the next step and level up your career by earning a professional PESO model certification from Spin Sucks and Syracuse University. In an 8-week online course, you'll learn PESO model strategy, effective use of all 4 media types, how PESO forms the foundation of your overall communication strategy, and how to tie communications to business impacts like lead generation and overall business goals. When you complete the course, you'll earn an accredited certificate from Syracuse University's S.I. Newhouse School of Public Communications, a powerful tool for setting yourself apart and above in the job market. Learn more about the certification today at trustinsights.ai/PESO. That's trustinsights.ai/PESO. In this week's In-Ear Insights, we are talking SEO analytics, a term that you don't hear a whole lot because a lot of the times in SEO, we just talk about search engine optimization in general, what to optimize, how to optimize, best practices, hacks, tips, tricks, all that stuff. And we don't spend a whole lot of time on the data. And one of the problems that I see in this space, Katie, is people kind of have all these great tools, Ahrefs, SEMrush, Moz, SpyFu, you name it. There's a million vendors out there. But nobody ever talks about the quality of the data. We all just kind of assume that these tools know what they're doing and accept their analytics as gospel. So when you are talking to clients, when you're talking to fellow marketers about SEO, how much are they thinking about the analytics of SEO?
Honestly, not a whole lot. I know a lot of marketers, the first question they ask is, well, does domain authority still matter? Or what is domain authority? So that's really the metric that I hear about the most when it comes to SEO in terms of like getting the quote unquote SEO juice. But for the most part, I think people, they want to know if they've moved up in the search engine rankings. Period. That's really all they're paying attention to, which rightfully so. That is a very important thing to be paying attention to with SEO. But I'm not hearing about a lot of other metrics or analytics or any sort of analysis when it comes to SEO. So Chris, when you think about analysis and the metrics that you can look at within SEO and what you can do with that, what does that look like to you, someone coming from that data science perspective?
It's not even data science. It's actually similar to what you do. You and I were talking about this last week with postmortems on projects, right? What was the plan? What actually happened? The SEO tool is the plan, right? You're saying, here's what we're planning to do. We want organic traffic to these pages for these keywords to go up, right? We want more traffic to the website and to every podcast we've ever done ever. We want it to map to an actual business goal. And then you have what actually happened, which you get from things like Google Search Console, Google Analytics, other analytics software. And I have yet to see someone do and publish. It may be something people hold internally for confidentiality reasons, but I've yet to see someone do and publish something where it says, here was the plan, here was the actual, here's the difference, and this SEO tool either led us in the right direction or this SEO tool led us in the wrong direction because the data that the tool said was relevant didn't match up with the reality of what happened. When you do a post-mortem, Katie, and something goes off the rails and you get less than what you expected, or even if you get more than what you expected, what's the next step? What do you do when you say, hey, reality does not match the plan?
Um, Thank you for the loaded question. No, it's a big question because it really depends on how far off the rails you went and at what phase of the project you went off the rails. So if you're talking specifically about SEO, if you see, for example, your efforts overperformed, for example, and you're looking at the results of the SEO project that you just did, then you say, okay, cool. You can't just re-replicate that because then you're starting to talk apples to oranges because not everything is created the same. So you have to really dig into what specifically did you do? Was it that you carefully every day optimized every single piece of content? It's that you paid attention to the keyword volume and really were strategic around picking the competitive keywords versus your own branded keywords. So you need to really dig into those metrics to see what was happening that was making something so successful. Conversely, if you're saying, okay, this did not go as well as we wanted to, you have to start to pick it apart step by step to say, what didn't we do, or what did we do that just fell flat? So a lot of times with SEO, because the information on a search engine is changing so rapidly and the algorithms themselves are changing on a fairly regular basis, you could have the most well put together plan. And by the time it's executed, it's irrelevant. It's not something that's going to, be as effective as it should be or should have been a couple of months previous, because everything has changed. And so, it's tough. So it's being a little bit more agile with your SEO plans. I think that that's the big thing. Like if I was sitting in a postmortem, how were we being agile and looking at something on a regular basis? What check-ins did we put in every morning to see that the plan that we were executing was still effective and that things that were out of our control haven't shifted?
That's really interesting because when you approach SEO as essentially a project, which in a lot of cases it is, then you've actually got 4 different projects under the hood, and that vastly complicates understanding the analytics about it, because you have technical SEO, which is things like server speed, and whether using the right protocols, HTTPS, HTTP2, et cetera, et cetera. There's content, which is, do you have the right content on site? Is it well written, et cetera? Is it authoritative? Does it demonstrate expertise? There's on-site SEO, which is all the technical stuff, like technical on-site things like headers and formats and schemas and markup and json-ld, et cetera. And then there's off-site, which is all your link building. All 4 of those mini projects inside the project each have their own analytics. And in the end, we only have one benchmark, which is, did the number of organic searches to this page increase or decrease? And so you run into this is probably why no one has ever done this. You run into a very difficult mathematics problem where you have 4 projects with 4 sets of variables, some of which may be very different than others, and we have one outcome, and you have to do a massive multiple regression analysis to figure out which of the indicators in each of these areas led to or has a mathematical relationship to the outcome we care about, which is increased organic search traffic. When you have 4 different projects in a project management setup that they're competing for the same resources and have the same objective but different ways of achieving that objective, and you analyze it and find there's only a couple of metrics in each bucket that actually matter, how do you communicate that back to your SEO team or your agency or vendor to say, here's the things that we need to work on based on our analysis, assuming that you could do the analysis in the first place? How do you help them balance that to understand, like, yeah, you need to be driving more inbound links, but also you need to be optimizing pages to be more than 1,000 words, and also you need to be, and so on and so forth. How do you help people wrap their brains around that?
I think it all starts with having a solid plan of attack of how you want to accomplish this. So basically, you're talking about, 4 work streams simultaneously happening, which is not uncommon, especially in a smaller company where people are wearing multiple hats and doing multiple things. So I would say the first thing to do is really set up some sort of measurement system so that on a daily basis, hopefully this is automated, because if it's manual, it's going to be a nightmare. But if there's some sort of an automated measurement reporting system that helps you see in real time, here's the result of my efforts from the previous day, I would start there. And whether it's, technical or on-site or content, whatever you decide with your team are the metrics that are most important within each one of those projects, make sure you have a system set up where you can see, okay, I got 2 new inbound links yesterday, and here's what that looks like in my reporting dashboard. I optimized 1 piece of content yesterday. Here's how that changes in the past 24 hours after it has been re-indexed and now the search engines can find it. So that's why I would start, is set up some sort of a tracking measurement system so that people can see the progress on a daily basis, and then just be realistic about what you can do in an 8-hour period with each of those things. So maybe, if you think about it, very simple math, if you have 4 projects and 8 hours, then 2 hours dedicated to each one of these things. So within that 2-hour block, what can you accomplish so that you're continuing to move forward towards each of your milestones within those projects. It's not an ideal situation, but if you sort of like break it down very simply like that, then you can really start to set some realistic expectations of, I want to optimize one piece of content per day. I want to get one new inbound link, but then getting that consistency is where you're going to really start to see success and see really good metrics.
That's where an agency or vendor is really going to be helpful, because in a lot of cases, like you said, with smaller teams, you probably don't have 8 hours a week to dedicate to SEO, even though it probably is, 25 to 50, maybe even 75% of your traffic. You just don't have the time to do that. Now, when it comes to the tools themselves, a lot of these tools do spit out a tremendous amount of data. You mentioned things like domain authority. And I think one of the things that we have to clarify is that each of these tools, their individual metrics internally, are arbitrary. They are what the vendor has decided matches whatever reality they can see. And I think it's important to caution people to say, just because it's built in the tool does not mean it's right. And you do have to question whether what's in the tool is right or not. One of the reasons to do this type of in-depth analysis is to evaluate these different software tools and say, hey, here's my site. Forget how the tool came up with the numbers broadly. Here's my site. Here's my data. Here's what the tool says. And based on that, you should be able to evaluate, the tool closely maps to the reality, or the tool does not map to the reality at all. In some industries, particularly niche industries where there's a lot of hidden data, or there's a lot of stuff you just can't put on the web, like healthcare, for example, the tool may not match the reality at all. When you run into a situation like that, what do you do when you have no guidance? What do you do when you have no data to give you a sense of where to go?
Well, I want to step back a little bit because you're talking about, evaluating these tools and whether or not the data that they're giving you is correct or not. And I think that that's where a lot of us sort of stumble. And, we've talked about this in the context of, does a tool have AI built in, or, whatever the thing is. And it really comes down to, how do you know how to question a vendor, and how do you know if what they are telling you is correct or not, or if they're just BSing you? So if you're looking at an SEO vendor, any good vendor should have documentation as to how their numbers are collected and how they're calculated. And so if you're evaluating an SEO vendor, one of the many that are out there, even if the documentation is not present on their website, you should be able to contact them and say, can you share with me how you're collecting domain authority, for example, and how you get to that number? What does that look like? Now, they might send you a bunch of technical documentation that doesn't make any sense, but the fact that they have it documented is a really good sign. If someone says, oh yeah, no, that's, we can't tell you that, that's probably a red flag. But Chris, I can see that you're like smiling and chomping at the bit. What have I stumbled across?
It's not stumbled across. The questions you're asking are exactly the right questions. I have asked those questions of all of the major vendors, and every single one of them gives the exact same answer. We have our own proprietary blend of, and they go into basically a bunch of smoke and mirrors, and never actually explain in detail the math of how they get at what they get at. And I have a broad sense of how they do it. They're essentially doing large-scale regression analysis, and they're calibrating against another third-party vendor's data to try and figure out the traffic that a site is getting. But as we all know, just because something is broadly applicable does not mean it's applicable to our specific use case, our specific instance. A lot of these tools fall down when you get below a certain amount of traffic because there's no visibility into that type of data, or they fall down because what works in consumer packaged goods has no real relevancy to an analytics consulting firm, for example. So the fact that these tools all have these proprietary blends and they all treat them as black boxes, that's the answer we get. So when you get that answer from a vendor, I usually just shove the salesperson out of the way and try and find an engineer. But even then, they're not necessarily going to be all that forthcoming. What do you do when you run into that stone wall of sales BS?
Oh, besides kick and scream and cry and yell at people. Um, it's tough because that's unfortunately that's where a lot of us are just left is like, okay, nobody will give me the answer that I need, but I have managers breathing down the back of my neck saying, pick a tool, give me metrics, what am I paying for? Is it working? And you're just left not knowing what the answer is. And so it's a really uncomfortable situation. And I don't think there's a good solution. So, right now, Chris, you're saying that you try to bypass the salesperson and find an engineer. That's fine if you know what the engineer is saying to you, because that's a whole different language and a whole different skill set. So, if you don't have the answers from sales. And if you can't find an engineer who can speak, a common language with you, then you're kind of stuck. And so, Chris, you had mentioned, um, you know, taking a look at your own reality. So if I'm a marketer and I need to get my SEO house in order and look at my own data and put together my own reporting with my own stuff, where do I start? What metrics can I throw up onto a data studio dashboard and say, okay, now I'm at least starting to make sense of it?
I think you hit the nail exactly on the head. It is your data. Forget what the third party tools are saying and look at Google Search Console, Google Analytics, and that's where or the equivalents for if you use different tools. But that's exactly where you start. You start with how much of my organic search traffic is converting, because that alone tells you whether you should be spending a whole lot of time on SEO or not. If you get 5 visitors a month and 0 of them convert, guess what? You don't need to spend a whole lot of time on SEO. You actually have bigger problems, but you don't need to spend a whole lot of time on SEO. From there, you move up your SEO operations funnel. Man, we're checking all the buzzwords this episode. To what are your branded organic searches and unbranded organic searches? Because again, you want to see who's searching for you by name and what other topics you're being found by, and you want to look at the page level what pages are getting the most search traffic to understand, is the content on that page so topically relevant that you're getting good search traffic to it. And it's really important to do that at the page level, because if what people get stuck on a lot is that they get stuck on keyword level data. Like, I want to be known as a marketing analytics consulting firm. Cool. If your content is well written and authoritative and expert, you're going to get found for other stuff that you may not even have on that page. The example we always give is if you're a coffee shop and you've got a great website set up, you may be getting found for things like espresso near me or cafe mocha near me, even if you don't offer those drinks on your website, because those are topically relevant terms that Google in its semantic indexing understands. So looking at your pages at page level data for what pages get the most organic searches will then help you deconstruct those pages and understand, okay, what is the topic of this page? And again, it's your website. You should know what that page is about. If you don't, you have larger problems with your SEO. But that's where I would start, is what are the top pages by organic searches? What are the branded and unbranded organic searches we're getting found for? That would come from Google Search Console. And then what's the conversion rate of our search traffic? Those 3 things on a simple Data Studio dashboard will give you the starting points to say, okay, are things going in the right or wrong direction? Now, the challenge after that is, okay, you have the information. What are you going to do about it?
Well, and I would like to note, so as we're talking about these tools, Google Data Studio, Search Console, and Google Analytics are all tools that are free for marketers to use. They just need to be set up. So the investment is the time, not the dollars. And that's something, especially when budgets are tight and teams are, very small and agile, looking to all of the free tools that you have to use at your disposal is really going to be how you're going to get ahead and stay successful. Because I would imagine, and I'm doing this for us as well, what can get slashed, what can get cut. And a lot of times it's going to be these tools, especially if you have redundancy in tools, or if you're using 2 or 3 different SEO tools, most of those are going to get cut and go by the wayside. So you'd be like, oh my God, I don't have any more SEO data. Well, Chris, you just demonstrated that people have a lot of their own SEO data. You just need to do something with it. And so, so then the question you asked is, well, you have all this information, you've looked at it, what do you do? So it's interesting. When I look at our data, we still get searched for and found by terms like IGTV, And I see that one a lot. And so my first question is, one, do we have any good content that covers Instagram TV? Second, what is Instagram TV? Because off the top of my head, I don't remember. I don't think it's a thing that really took off. But then is it something that we also want to continue to be found for? Is it, how much volume is it? Is it driving a lot of traffic, people finding us for this thing? Why are we being found for it? And so really starting to unpack, one specific search term or one specific page can actually, you can take all of your, 2 hours that you have to dedicate to that one thing, but make it really good.
And
Make sure that it's
that
formatted.
is exactly
It's
the value.
optimized.
Exactly. If you have goals and goal values set up properly in Google Analytics, you will get a page value, the dollar amount that the page is worth. Now you have the real juice. You have on one column the organic searches for that page, on the other column the value of that page. If there's not a strong correlation, then what you're getting found for has no value to your company. And so to answer your question, Katie, if you were to look at that and go, wow, IGTV stats, which is what we get found for, has 500 organic searches and a value of 0, that's like, okay, I don't really want to be found for that. But if it's like $1,000, like, crap, we better make like an IGTV webinar. We better do an IGTV, speaking at conferences, whatever the thing is. But to your point earlier, that's data you have. You don't need any vendors other than the free tools from Google to find that information. You just have to have it set up properly. And by the way, if you'd like to read about IGTV, go over to trustinsights.ai. Check out our blog. We got a bunch of blog posts over there about it. So to recap, SEO analytics is all about understanding the data that comes out of SEO. And you have to have the data. And you don't necessarily need to spend a ton of money to get it, because chances are you've got the most important data already from your existing tools. As with all data and analytics, make sure that you are looking at the data with a lens towards making a decision on it, and focus on the things that matter the most, the things that are directly connected to business impact. With that, you'll be a lot more successful with your SEO efforts. If you have follow-up questions on this topic, please stop on by our Slack group, trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers. Join free with over 900 other marketing professionals and hang out, chat about analytics all day. That's where today's topic came from, was from a question by one of the folks in our Analytics for Marketers group. Stop by the Trust Insights website as well for this podcast. Subscribe to it, the newsletter, and all the good stuff. We will talk to you soon. Take care. Thanks for listening to In-Ear Insights. Leave a comment on the accompanying blog post if you have follow-up questions, or email us at marketing@trustinsights.ai. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on your favorite podcast service like iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify. And as always, if you need help with your data and analytics, visit trustinsights.ai for more. Want help solving your company's data, analytics, and digital marketing problems? Visit trustinsights.ai today and let us know how we can help you.